Hello, and welcome to the Private Corporate Counsel Podcast. My name is Mary Kogut-Lowell. I'm a business lawyer, and I direct Private Corporate Counsel. My background is in languages, law, and business. And I'm pleased to introduce my co-host, business attorney Mary Cannon. Like me, Mary Cannon is a business attorney at Private Corporate Counsel. She has extensive experience representing businesses of all sizes and served as in-house counsel for an e-commerce website for 6 years. Our business attorneys and consultants help entrepreneurs and executives make their business dreams a reality. It's like having your own in-house counsel and more without the high cost. Visit privatecorporatecounsel.com to learn more. Today, our topic will be business communication. And as a business owner or entrepreneur, you know it is important to communicate effectively. But sometimes things don't always go as planned. Here's a real life example. A few years ago, I was communicating with one of my colleagues, and she was going to send some information from us to a third person outside our organization. She went ahead and sent that information. We didn't hear back from that person, so it occurred to me maybe my friend should reach out to her again. So I sent her an email asking her to do so. And in response, I got this one-line email, which I read as, "Mary, I resent your email." And so I was taken aback. And I was fuming. I was mad. I was thinking, what a bad attitude. What the heck is wrong with her? She resents my email? And I thought, well, I'm going to need to talk to her. So I think I fumed about it for about 3 days. And then all of a sudden it occurred to me, she didn't say, "Mary, I resent your email." She said, "Mary, I resent your email." In other words, she had re-forwarded my email to that person, which is has a completely different meaning. But I think to me, that's a great example of how business communication can run amok. What about you, Mary? Do you have any examples?
I do, actually. I think that yours is a wonderful example of written business communication, and there's an occasion I can think of that has to do with verbal communication. So at one point in my career, I was managing employees in a warehouse setting. And we had a loading dock with frequent pickups and drop-offs, meaning we needed that area cleared and accessible at all times. But unfortunately, we also had a neighboring business that was quite busy and whose customers tended to try to use our loading area as a parking lot. Obviously, that was very disruptive to our operations, and it was something that we had to handle frequently, sometimes multiple times a day. Mm-hmm. So on one such occasion, I casually asked an employee to go next door and yell at them to move their car. And about 30 seconds later, I see my employee walk across the parking lot with her hands cupped across her face like this, and she actually literally yelled at them, "Hey, you need to move your car." So again, I was taken aback. I instantly realized my mistake because although to me it seemed obvious, we don't go around yelling at people. That's not what I meant. I realized I did not ask her to go whisper to them or speak calmly to them. I technically said yell. And that's exactly what happened. So while your written communication was misinterpreted because of a misunderstanding, in my case, the recipient of my message missed the figurative meaning and took it extremely literally. So it's something we always need to be on guard for.
Right. And I know with email communication, there's always a risk of miscommunication simply because you're looking at words on a screen.
That's right.
If my friend had verbally communicated with me, I would have heard her tone of voice, I would have seen her facial expressions, and I would have understood that she was saying, "I resent your email," rather than "I resent." So that's one of the things with email communication. They're words on a screen. So we have to keep that in mind and be aware of that.
Absolutely. And I know it's a subject that's close to your heart.
Oh, yes. Yes. Business communication is a subject that I really love. And from 2008 to 2016, I taught a graduate level course in professional communication in the College of Business at the University of Florida. And a lot of what we're going to share today comes directly from that course. So I wanted to say hats off to the Center for Business Communication at the University of Florida, which really does a magnificent job in educating future business leaders. So what we're going to talk about today, we're going to talk about some techniques that you can use today to avoid communication breakdowns and make your business writing more dynamic, persuasive, and effective. So one important concept to keep in mind is that business writing should be reader friendly. Mary, what does it mean when we say business writing should be reader friendly?
Well, there are two aspects that we're thinking about when we say that. The first one is to know your audience, and the second is to make your message clear and easy to understand. If you look back to my example, try to think literally. First of all, you need to know your audience. For example, if I'm writing a proposal that I plan to submit to a business, my audience is that business that I'm sending the proposal to. I'm thinking to myself, who are the people operating the business and what is important to them? Or let's say I'm a job seeker applying for a position at that same business. I need to tailor my resume and my cover letter to their unique business and the specific position being offered. So really it comes down to being as clear and direct as possible and always tailoring your message to the specific audience or objective that you're trying to accomplish.
Great. Well said. It's all about clarity and concision and being aware of your audience and who's receiving that information. So we do need to know your audience and make sure your message is clear and easy to understand. So what are the basics of reader-friendly writing? Well, the answer really can depend, and it varies depending on what country you're in. Conducting business in the USA is very different from conducting businesses in other countries, let's say, from a cultural standpoint. Now, for example, in Asia, when you hand someone your business card, that person will typically take a moment to actually look at and read your business card. It's considered polite to read it and then put it down on the table or in a business card holder. You don't just accept someone's business card and throw it into a bag or whatever. So that's a cultural difference. So we, it is important to understand that business communication does vary by culture. But we're definitely, today we're going to focus primarily on business communication in America. But it is good to keep in mind that business communication is different in different countries.
I think that's a really good point to keep in mind, and it's something that business leaders need to be proactive about. If you're going to be conducting business with people from other countries, other cultures, you have to actually seek out cultural tips and guidance because, like with your example, this is not something that's potentially something that we're already aware of as Americans. This is something that we need to actually learn. Another example that I've heard of in Eastern countries is that money or even credit cards are rarely passed from hand to hand. The custom is instead to slide money across the table in a tray so that it's never handed directly to the recipient. Again, this is the kind of thing that we've never seen done here in the U.S. and that we would never think to do. Therefore, it's our responsibility to look into the cultural aspects of our communication and be proactive on that.
Right. So in general, business writing in the United States tends to be direct. And the three basics of reader-friendly writing are: 1, compose active and energetic sentences; 2, front load the purpose of your message; and 3, provide sufficient information. So we're going to talk a little bit more about those three basic concepts.
Yes, so with those in mind, I'd like to workshop a few example sentences and share a few simple strategies that will help activate your business writing and make it more compelling and persuasive, just by a few simple changes. So one tip is to always try to omit filler phrases like "it is," there are. Occasionally, there are instances where this type of writing is actually preferable, but for the most part, it's something you want to avoid. So let's give an example of a wordy sentence. It is expensive to upgrade computer systems. We can rewrite that sentence to be more concise by saying, upgrading computer systems is expensive. As a bonus, I think that it sounds more authoritative and compelling when it's rewritten.
It is, and the reason why it is because that in the first example, it is expensive to upgrade computer systems. Ask yourself, what does it mean? Grammarians like to call that a dummy subject, because it's really a placeholder for the true subject of the sentence, which is upgrading computer systems. So instead of saying it is expensive to upgrade computer systems, we say upgrading computer systems is expensive. It's more direct, it's concise, it's clear. So yes, excellent tip. Avoid phrases such as it is, there are. Because as we try to make our business writing more concise and direct, it will be vastly more effective. And one other thing to note about this, what we're saying here, these filler phrases, they're not grammatically incorrect. We're not talking about a grammatical error. This is a stylistic technique. So it's grammatically correct to say it's expensive to do this, or it's grammatically correct to say it's important to study. That's grammatically correct, but you can also turn that around and say studying is important. That's a more concise, direct way to go. So good example, Mary. Now, here's another technique that you can use, which is to omit or stop using this at the beginning of a sentence. Here's an example. Chlorofluorocarbons have been banned from aerosols. This has lessened the ozone layer's depletion. That's two sentences, one of them starting with this. I can rewrite those two sentences in a more concise manner and say, lawmakers have banned chlorofluorocarbons from aerosols, lessening the ozone layer's depletion. So the first example was wordy. It's not grammatically incorrect. It was wordy. So we're trying to avoid wordiness. We're trying to be direct, concise, and clear. Do you have another example, Mary?
I sure do. I'd like to jump back to your example really quickly and just also point out how your second sentence paints a much more vivid picture. When you said lawmakers have banned, I can really picture the lawmakers assembling and putting together this legislation. It's really powerful. My next example comes from the world of theater, though. So here's a wordy sentence I'd like to workshop. The show's director is concerned about problems. Typical problems may occur with lighting, sound, and props. So technically, those are two closely related short sentences that we can actually combine into one, get rid of a few extraneous words, and make our message clearer and stronger. So a more concise version of that sentence might be, the show's director is concerned about typical problems with lighting, sound, and props. So it's not very different, yet the message is stronger and clearer. We can also use a colon to accomplish a similar objective, changing the sentence, the theater has three main technical areas. These areas are costumes, scenery, and lighting. 2, the theater has three main technical areas, colon, costumes, scenery, and lighting.
And with that simple change, you have a much more concise, direct sentence. And that's one of the things that I really wanted to emphasize today is these techniques are things that you can do today. You can just adopt this today in your writing because you may have never really been familiar or you've never really thought of this. But these are things that if you keep them in mind, you'll be surprised at the improvement in your writing. The techniques really do work. So that's our pretty much our discussion on business writing. But before closing today, I wanted to mention something on a slightly different subject. I recently came across an article in a publication called Variety, and the headline was John Fogerty acquires rights to Creedence Clearwater Revival songs. And according to this article, John Fogerty, who's a rock and roll Hall of Famer, when he was a young person, he lost the legal rights to the songs he wrote. And this is a typical problem that we see with young entertainers and artists who are eager to get their music out there or their art out there. They just want to get paid something because they may have been working for free. And so many times they sign things without realizing what they're talking about. Well, it took John Fogerty over 50 years to regain rights to the songs that he wrote in the late 60s and 70s. So I thought this was a really cool article, and I wanted to bring it up because in our next episode, we're actually going to be talking with an entertainment lawyer, and we're going to be talking about this sort of a problem. So I just wanted to mention that because it was a great article, and it's something we're going to be talking about in our next episode.
What a great story that is. I'm really excited for the next episode because, as you know, arts and entertainment are big business, and I love hearing stories like John Fogerty's. I think it's amazing that after 50 years, he never gave up, and ultimately he prevailed in securing the rights to his music.
I agree. I've been a fan of his for decades, so I was really happy to hear this news, but it made me think, what about the struggling artists who don't have the money and the means to hire legal counsel and undergo a decades-long battle? That's why we're going to talk with an entertainment lawyer in our next episode, and we're going to talk about legal issues that we're suggesting artists need to be aware of and before they sign those contracts.
That should be fascinating.
Okay. So today we talked about business communication. We looked at some common pitfalls and some techniques that you can use today to make your writing more efficient, energetic, and persuasive. Before signing off, we'd like to thank Private Corporate Counsel for making this podcast possible.
And to get additional information about Private Corporate Counsel and how we can help make your business dreams a reality, please call us now at the number below, 877-647-7887, or shoot us an email, info@privatecorporatecounsel.com.
And again, in our next episode, our guest will be an entertainment lawyer who's going to talk about common legal issues that entertainers encounter along the way and steps that they can take to protect themselves legally. So thank you for joining us today.
See you next time.
Please continue listening to our podcast to learn more. Contact us at 877-647-7887 or email us at info@privatecorporatecounsel.com to learn more about the Private Corporate Counsel program and how we can help you and your business on your journey to success.